I've had my share of creepy encounters with strange people, but this one bothers me the most. I'm a female. I was 19 at the time, attending a community college close to home. This was my first year, so I was taking elective courses and planning on getting into a major the following year. So I was taking a philosophy course. You get a mixed bag of students that are majoring in a wide range of things. There's this guy who sat behind me. He was maybe 30. He was husky build and tall. I weigh 115 pounds, so he could easily have crushed me. He seemed overly friendly with me. He was always asking me questions about my studies and about my life. It became obvious he had some type of crush, but I was not attracted to him whatsoever. I answered some questions, but did my best to avoid him. He had this creepy vibe to him. One day in class, we were supposed to get into groups for a project, so it was him, me, and another girl. He suddenly grabbed the girl's hand and started caressing them. She says, "Dude, stop it," and moves away from him. So the creepy vibe got more intense after I saw that. One day when class was over, I was walking to the next one. I had to go outside to go into a new building. As I was about to enter the building, I caught a glimpse of his reflection on the door. He stayed far enough behind so I wouldn't see him, but I could tell that he was debating if he was going to keep following. I was very unnerved by that, but thought maybe he just has a crush and he's socially awkward. The next day after class, he started to follow me and asked if he could walk me to my next class. I said, "Yeah, I guess." His personality was more aggressive than mine. I was always such a people pleaser. This particular building had way less people than the others. We walked down the staircase where there was nobody in sight. He suddenly looked at me and said, "Have you ever heard the story about the girl who was raped near the staircase?" He had this creepy smile on his face, but it didn't register right away with me. I said, "What girl? What staircase?" He repeated it again very slowly as he looked at me and the stairs. I suddenly felt very uncomfortable that we were totally alone. I couldn't answer and felt sick. I said something like, "I'm late for class," and left him behind. Thankfully, he didn't follow. Soon after that, it was final exams. In the class I shared with him, the instructor passed out our test and said to complete it and turn it in. Once we do that, we are free to leave and have a nice summer. I knew that I had to keep away from this guy, but he leaned over and said to me, "After you finish, wait in the hallway for me." I felt scared. I knew I had to finish the exam before he did so I can get away. I went through it as quickly as I could. I didn't even care if my grade wouldn't be as good because of how quickly I tried to get through it. I just turned it in. I tried to look as nonchalant as possible. I walked out and sprinted down the hall, out into the parking lot. Thankfully, I never saw him again. This happened at school when I was 7 or 8. We used to have compulsory evening preps where we would study from 7 to 9. There were no excuses, even us day schoolers had to attend. On that evening, one of the teachers sent me and my friend to go take some keys to the boys' dormitory warden. It was around 8 p.m., so it was very dark. My friend and I were apprehensive about going because the path to the dorm was very dark, but we couldn't refuse the teacher, so we went. As we were walking, one of the boys jumped out and scared us. It was so sudden that I immediately started running. As we ran, we passed by a bigger group of boys that were hidden in the corner. When they saw us pass, they immediately started chasing us and shouting that they only wanted to play. This made us run faster towards the dorm. We realized that the only way back was where the boys were chasing us from. It looked like the end for us. I desperately looked around to see if there was any way of escaping, and I saw a newly dug garden that was next to the boys' dorm. I swiftly steered my friend towards it, and as we got closer we realized that it had a fence, but luckily it had spaces between that we were able to squeeze through, and we ran like hell back to the teacher. When we got to him, we tried to tell him that the boys had tried to grab us in the dark, and all he said was that they were playing. I got so mad that he wasn't taking us seriously, but he just shrugged and instead got mad at us for not delivering the keys. Immediately, my dad came to pick us up and we went home. I told my parents what happened, and they moved me to a much better school. I later found out that my friend had left that school too. I was so glad that the garden didn't have a normal fence, or we would have been attacked. This is something that happened to me when I was around 15 or 16. I used to be painfully shy as a kid, so I had a small group of friends that I was always around. My first day of sophomore year, I met this guy, let's call him Seth, 18 or 19, in one of my classes, and he seemed a little strange. I didn't think much of it at the time, because he seemed really nice. Finally, it was time for my favorite period, lunch. Lunch was reserved for my favorite people. Two boys who graciously accepted an awkward 13-year-old me after a dramatic move to my dad's home. One of the boys was actually my best friend and first boyfriend. Let's call him Jay. So we were really close and I trusted him more than anyone else. The other, let's call him Harry, was in the same class with me where I met Seth. Anyway, I sit at our table and we begin comparing teachers when Seth randomly joins our table. I figured that he was one of their friends, so we just continued like normal. After a few weeks, I started getting a little creeped out by Seth. He seemed to be everywhere I went in the school, and always stood way too close. If I asked him to step back, he would point out to other guy friends who stood closer. For context, I am in a wheelchair, and he is very tall, so my head is at the same level as that area. I eventually found out that he had seen my school login and saved it to his computer. Now, I didn't want to immediately freak out and report him, so I decided I was just going to ask him to delete it. He said that he would, and that was the end of that. As the months went on, Seth started to get worse. The class we had was a film class where the students would go out during the period in groups to do the project independently. This is very scary because he would immediately claim me in his group, and I was too nice to decline until we were put in pairs. He would always try to get me to go film with him in the back fields behind our school. The way he would suggest it got me so scared that I would refuse to leave the room. My teacher was amazing and didn't force anyone to go out. He would end up doing it alone, and I would edit. While Seth was out, I decided to see if he deleted my login. He hadn't. He had at least 20 other logins saved into his document, and this time I was scared enough to report it to my counselor. My counselor was a complete idiot and decided to tell him that a girl in his class reported him. I found out because the next day he came to lunch and started accusing me and seemed really angry. I denied it, and Jay and Harry stuck up for me. It was shortly after this that I found out that neither of my friends knew Seth. He had only known me when he joined our table. My counselor decided that my concerns were not important enough to notify the teacher, nor the police. I guess it was not serious enough to warrant anything outside of school. They didn't even notify my dad. After everything happened with the report, he went back to being creepy, but in a worse way. Every day he would try to convince me to go somewhere with him behind our school, and it had gotten to the point that he was trying to tell me I had to. He would make up excuses for us to go somewhere alone. I didn't tell anyone about it besides the school and my teacher later because at the time I wasn't sure if I was just being crazy. I think my friends might have expected that he was getting a little pushy because they started walking me to class whenever they could. When I told my teacher what was going on, he immediately started assigning seats and talked to another girl in my class to see if I could permanently join her group. Seth graduated at the end of the year and decided to resurface in my email inbox when I was 17 or 18. I blocked him. I'm attending a small private college in the Midwestern United States. As a fine arts major, I spend many late nights in the art building. This particular evening, several students were there along with me and one of my professors. I was going to take some creepy photographs for an assignment in the building's basement. I had been there before, and it's basically a concrete coffin for storage. I wasn't scared, but I persuaded my friend Beth to join me. The staircase came out in the middle of a slim rectangular structure divided into several rooms. We turned on all the lights to see the stacks of artwork and old documents that were piled in every corner and crevice, and there were cobwebs over everything. We had to leave at one point to help another student moving pottery, and upon our return to the stairwell the light was on, but the entire basement was pitch black. I was certain we had left the lights on. I asked Beth, but she just mumbled a quiet, "I don't know," and I figured I had just forgotten. We were in a room about 40 feet long, and we were positioned on the side of the furthest to the stairwell. Our only light source was coming from the far right room. The white light spilled across the graffitied wall I'd been photographing. The back of the room was occupied with a huge heating and cooling duct system. It took up almost the entire back wall and pushed into the room about 5 feet. Stacks of cardboard boxes and tools cluttered the area around it. I tried to pass the time with chatter. I almost thought some horrible, grotesque art project gone wrong would jump out of the shadows. About 20 minutes had passed when we heard a faint sound coming from the stairwell. It sounded distant. I asked Beth if she had heard it too, and received a nod. It sounded kind of like someone clapping their hands together, but we were definitely the only two down there. I shivered internally and continued talking. There was a scraping sound and all talking stopped. It sounded like someone was dragging an object across the hard floor, like a cupboard across the concrete. I stood up. That sound came from inside the room near the stairs. I instantly thought animal, but how would it get down here? There was only one entrance and exit. My eyes darted from side to side, searching the darkness. Then, without warning, a small cupboard box shot out from behind the far end of the duct machine. It slid across the floor, and my stomach dropped like a weight. It wasn't like the box fell and rolled across the ground. Someone had thrown it, pushed it, or kicked the damn thing. It came across like a fucking rocket. Something had to be in here with us. I grabbed Beth's arm. Her eyes were glued to the box. She was terrified. There was no way anyone else had gotten in here without us hearing them or seeing them. My logical brain was screaming the fact, but what on earth moved that goddamn box? My brain was reeling as I shifted back to the lit room. The light felt safe somehow. Do you want to go? I heard Beth whisper. Was she crazy? If you want to go, I'll go too. While I'll give her props for her manners, we couldn't just go. The box was sitting right in front of the opposite door. Our only escape to safety of the staircase and a light switch. There was no way I was just gonna waltz by whatever kicked it out there. I stayed silent though. I wasn't sure I could talk. During that time, we heard small sounds from behind one of the big machines, like a continuous tapping sound, like an impatient hand drumming against a metal desk, but it soon escalated to loud bangs. It was so loud and the tight space made it echo and intensify. We didn't know what the fuck was going on, and we had no idea what to do or where to go. All we could hear was a constant noise, but we couldn't see anything in the darkness. It was so frustrating that I somehow found my voice. "Who the hell are you?" I managed to choke out. It sounded much less intimidating than intended. You better knock it the fuck off." My hands were shaking, and it was then that the noise changed and we heard one of the most disturbing sounds I've ever witnessed. But it wasn't because of the sound itself. This awful screeching and scratching reverberated across the room. It literally sounded like nails on a chalkboard, but I knew what it was, and it scared the shit out of me. Something was crawling from behind the damn machine, and I could tell that it was coming towards us, and it was coming fast, really fucking fast. That was the most disturbing part. It moved so desperately towards us, straining against the machine and scraping the wall. It was like running a concrete block against a cheese grater, and amplified times 1,000. It must have been a tight fit for whatever it was, and we still couldn't see a goddamn thing. In my head, all I could imagine was some sort of disgusting and disfigured person scrambling towards us. Probably had gross teeth and 5 legs with a knife. Maybe they had been down here for a while, and we had disturbed them in their hidey hole. People didn't venture into the basement often, and there certainly weren't routine checks. Someone could have theoretically hid down there. Either way, I knew that they were trying to attack. Nothing moves that fast to say hello. My adrenaline was pumping, and Beth looked ready to keel over in fear. I scanned the room for some sort of weapon, and the closest object was this nasty looking plunger. It may not have been the most gracious choice, but it was better than nothing. Another noise echoed from the other end of the room. It was definitely a cell phone hidden in the concrete on the far end, but it wasn't either of ours. Instantly, all my fear turned to anger, like a light switch was flipped. I knew who it was, my best friend. "Carrie, you bitch! You dropped your fucking phone. Get out here so I can kick your ass." I was seething. Adrenaline doesn't mix well with anger, at least not in this situation. I started moving when whoever had been moving towards us behind the machine jumped out right behind Beth and I. It was a short, hefty person, but the face looked remarkably like a bleached pig, complete with beady red eyes. I quickly realized that it was a disturbing mask. The person instantly sprinted towards us, and I stumbled back with a gasp. My hand was in a fist, and I swore I was going to punch someone out when I heard stifled laughter. Of all people, my fucking professor comes crawling out from the boxes. I can remember going, "What the fuck?" I was dumbfounded. Carrie came out from behind the machine sheepishly, clutching her shitty phone, and the masked sprinter was revealed to be another student. These idiots decided on a whim to prank us. They were successful. The pottery student and even the janitor were in on it, tasked with distracting us so the others could sneak downstairs. They had turned off the lights, and I had walked by their hiding spots several times. We were in there for almost about 10 minutes thinking that we were alone. Naturally, I ordered them to get the fuck out so that I could finish my assignment. Though I wasn't happy to see my friends, I'm glad I met them instead of my imaginary alternative. This happened to my daughter when she was just 4. I have 4 kids, and they all have their own rooms, but this particular night, my middle daughter wanted to sleep with the oldest one. Our house is pretty large, and the kids had their own section, so my room was on the other end of the house. We live in the south, and it's extremely hot, but this night it felt unbearable, even with the air on, so I was up and down. I was so restless and couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m. I go to the hall where my kids are, and I hear a little voice coming from the girls' room. Next thing I know, I see my 4-year-old coming out of the door, going towards the front door. I rush to her before she can open it and ask her, "What are you doing?" She said that her teacher was outside her window and wanted her to open the door. I thought she may have been dreaming, but she insisted we had to let him in. She went to preschool and her teacher was a woman, so I knew it wasn't her teacher. I went to the room and take a look, and I see a shadow going past the window. I just start shaking. I called the police, but he was gone before they got there, but they found size 11 footprints outside. We questioned her to see if we could figure out who it might have been, and she said he had long hair and was her teacher. Finally, a couple weeks later in Sunday school, she pointed to a picture of Jesus and said, "Him, he's my teacher." So whoever it was looked like that. We got an alarm system and nailed the window shut because I wasn't about to take the chance of one of my babies being taken. Junior year of college, this random guy approached me and my friend working a booth at an activities fair and asked us to help him get in contact with his buddy that he was supposed to go camping with. Mind you, this was winter in New Hampshire, so really fucking cold, so it was already starting to sound sketchy. Not only was this guy not a student at the university, but he didn't even know the name of the guy he was supposed to go camping with, nor did he know the phone number. He said something to the effect of, "Oh, I was supposed to pick him up this morning and give him and his girlfriend a ride to the campsite, but she's not picking up her phone. Can you help me find them? He kinda knew her name. Kept saying it was something like Emily or Emma. I was mad creeped out, but pretended to help nonetheless, as my friend seemed okay. He tried guessing the name of the male friend, but all the info he really had was the girl's name. His main goal in all of this was to figure out where he could find these people. He said he was trying to get into a building where he thought they were, and couldn't because it was locked. You can't get into residential halls on my campus without a student ID. He even hinted that he was hoping that one of us could help him get into the building, but we just shrugged it off with, "Oh, we wish we could help more, but we're stuck here until 2 p.m. After we failed to help him, we directed him towards the dining hall because we had no idea where else to send him. He walked out of the building, and my friend and I looked at each other, and we both were like, "Holy shit, did you get freaked out by him too?" I firmly believe that he was an abusive, jealous ex trying to find out where his ex-girlfriend and new boyfriend were. I really try not to judge someone before I know them, but something really just wasn't right with him, you know? P.S. This guy was 100% the Ted Bundy type. He had piercing turquoise blue eyes, was very handsome, had charming mannerisms and a striking jawline. I'm a 17-year-old female, and many other girls who went to my elementary school look back and see how creepy one of the teachers was. I'll call him Mr. B. From others, I was told that he did the most with me. So Mr. B was a teacher of mine when I was around 9 or 10 years old, and he was an average teacher, wasn't the best and wasn't the worst. Later on, when I was around 12 or 13, I joined the volleyball and basketball teams. He was a coach for both. Here's when things started to pick up. One day during practice, he wanted to practice the bumping technique, where you body check someone with your back. He called me from the back of the crowd and made me practice this on him from 3 different angles so the others could see. Later, I started helping around school with my friend, and he would always invite us to help him out during recess and would move all of his work to sit next to us and would offer us donuts and treats when we were there. Then the pet name started up. He would call us, "There are my beautiful girls." He would tell me I'm his lucky charm and needed to pet and play with my hair. When talking to us, his eyes would flicker either on my body or on my face, but rarely in my eyes. He would come visit us in class randomly, just to chat. One time, he sniffed my hair while playing with it and commented that it smelled like hairspray. For sports teams, he would let me join without making me try out because he missed me on the team, and it's not the same without you. We need you. To this day, I still see him because my friend's siblings are still in that school. I asked my friend if he comments on her or anything, and she said no, that he barely says anything to her. But when I visit, he again greets us as my beautiful, beautiful girls. He would chat and tell me how good I look, and would touch my shoulder when saying goodbye. He also even expressed that seeing me makes his day, and that he loves when we come back to visit. My friend goes every other day for her siblings, so obviously that doesn't make any sense. I've known this man for years. He acts like a creep, but I still know him by being on the team to helping him for so many years that I don't know how to feel. Is he just treating me differently due to all those factors, or is he a creep? I just feel very creeped out when I think about it.